Hold on tight, because once again we're about to delve deep into the crazy dimension known as the Special Zone. And while we're there, we'll be greeted by some other well-known characters from the Sonic series, the Chaotix Crew. The story, Total Chaotix, begins on the floating island. Knuckles is in the Emerald Chamber, admiring the Chaos Emeralds, which are once again safe from those who would use them for evil. Now that the Emeralds are fully restored, their power is greater than ever. More than enough to keep the island hovering in the sky, as well as keep a protective barrier around it. But getting the Emeralds back did come with a price. The entire population of the Emerald Hill Zone were relocated to the floating island's Mushroom Hill Zone, where they can start a new life away from the fear of being captured by Robotnik and turned into Badnik's slaves. Knuckles goes to check on the island's new inhabitants to see how well they're settling in. It seems that things are going well. Everyone is already building houses and getting things back in order. The only thing that Knuckles requests is that the Emerald Hill folk leave him alone and cause no trouble. As he looks over the zone, he takes a moment to stare off at a huge crater a short distance away. It's huge, and it was caused by a single blast from Robotnik's Death Egg before it was destroyed. Knuckles goes over to check it out, but when he gets there, a strange object catches his attention. He starts digging it out of the ground, some sort of stone ring covered in ancient symbols. He tries to translate it, but struggles to do so due to the ring's age. He managed to make out just enough to know that it mentions a gateway to some sort of dream country. As he touches the ring, it begins to glow and rise up from the ground. Before Knuckles can do anything, he starts getting pulled towards the ring, unable to resist the force pulling at him, and a moment later, he is gone, pulled through the portal at the ring's centre and sent to some place unknown. Elsewhere, Knuckles arrives in a place filled with strange objects. Cubes, spheres, rings, rocks, and all manner of crazy shapes float in the air as far as the eye can see. He grabs onto something and then steadies himself on a floating rock as he gets his bearings. And then, that's when it hit him. The text on the stone ring wasn't talking about a dream country, it was talking about a nightmare country, the ancient echidna's name for the Special Zone. As he tries to figure out how he's supposed to get back home, something else starts glowing behind him, and when he turns around, he's greeted by a giant floating creature which looks like a television screen with a face, the Omniviewer. Since Robotnik left the Special Zone to set up a new base in the Metropolis Zone, he left many of his old projects and prisoners behind. As such, the Omniviewer is no longer under Robotnik's control, but he does think that Knuckles is still working with him, and as such is determined to fight. Knuckles tries to explain that he's no longer working with Robotnik, but the Omniviewer will hear none of it. Instead, he prepares to send out his team of fighters to take on Knuckles, and out of the screen jumps the Chaotix Crew. The crew consists of Vector the Crocodile, Espio the Chameleon, Mighty the Armadillo, Charmy the Bee, and Knack the Weasel. The group looms over Knuckles imposingly as he continues to explain how he is no longer working with Robotnik, but it's still no use. The Chaotix attack. First up is Mighty, who leaps towards Knuckles, ready to pound the echidna into oblivion. Before the attack can land, however, Knuckles leaps from the platform and begins gliding away to another. Mighty only succeeds in destroying the rock, and then begins falling into the endless void that surrounds them. He's lucky that one of his teammates can fly. Charmy swoops in and grabs Mighty before he can fall too far, then brings him back up to the stable platform with his friends. As Knuckles reaches another floating object, he realises that trying to reason with them is useless. His only options are to either run or fight. Before Knuckles can climb to the top of the new platform, Espio appears out of nowhere. It seems that he has the ability to blend into any background, making himself appear completely invisible. Espio grabs Knuckles and begins wrestling with him, trying everything he can to hold him down while he calls for Knack to help finish the job. Before Knack can get too close, Knuckles begins to get the upper hand. He grabs the chameleon and swings him straight into Knack, knocking them both away. Now it's time for the leader of the Chaotix to take his turn. Vector leaps into the action and begins stalking his way closer to Knuckles. When he gets close enough, he snaps his vice-like jaws, but Knuckles dodges out of the way just in time, then retaliates with a swift uppercut to the crocodile's chin. The Omniviewer calls out to his fighters and orders them to stop. It turns out that while the battle was going on, he was checking into Knuckles' story regarding his alliance to Robotnik, and found that he was telling the truth all along. He found out everything. that Robotnik had tricked him to try to get to the Chaos Emeralds, and he's now Robotnik's enemy along with the rest of Mobius. As the Omniviewer is explaining all of this, Charmy notices something strange appearing inside the screen, some strange dark globs growing bigger and taking on some sort of shape. Something has managed to get into the viewer's systems, though given the level of his technology, that should be impossible. Soon, the shapes on the screen begin taking on a very familiar shape, something that Knuckles has seen before. On the screen appears Metalix, the metal version of Sonic, except now there's two of him. The Omniviewer calls for help, and the Chaotix try to get back inside the screen, but Metalix has found a way to lock them out. Vector pushes against the screen as hard as he can, trying to force his way inside, but it's no use. On the other side, Metalix raises up a small remote control type device and enters a few commands to start what he calls the grabbing sequence. Immediately, the Omniviewer gets pulled from his screen and into the remote. Just as the transfer is complete, the pair of robots make their escape, leaving the viewer's screen completely empty, floating above Knuckles and the Chaotix, who could do nothing to stop it all. As everyone regroups and tries to make sense of what's going on, Knack thinks that it's all too convenient that someone who used to work for Robotnik turned up, followed quickly by Metalix. He suspects that Knuckles is still working for Robotnik in secret, but the rest of the crew has faith in the viewer's judgment, and believes that Robotnik and Knuckles are indeed enemies. Knuckles turns to Vector. Since the Chaotix are residents of the Special Zone, they should hopefully have some kind of idea where Metalix may have taken the viewer. The only place he can think of is Robotnik's old base, the Egg Fortress. Since Robotnik left the zone, his base was thought to be abandoned, but given the circumstances, it's the most obvious place to look. The group waste no time in finding out. They team up and dash off as quickly as they can to rescue their kidnapped friend. Elsewhere in the Special Zone, Robotnik's old Egg Fortress stirs with new activity. Inside, the two Metalix greet another, bigger version of themselves, the Metalix Emperor. The smaller robots confirm that their mission was a success, that they've captured the Omniviewer and are ready to transfer him into the base's systems. They begin the transfer process, and within no time at all, the Omniviewer appears on the base's screens, demanding to know what's going on. Instead of answering any questions, the Metalix Emperor simply disables the viewer's audio systems, leaving him unable to be heard as they begin the next part of their plan. Back outside, Knuckles and the Chaotix arrive at the base and are looking for some way in. Knuckles is sure that the base must have some tough armour, but Mighty thinks it will be no match for his strength. The others try to stop him, but it's already too late. Mighty swings a punch at the wall and breaks open a hole big enough for them to get inside. Knuckles explains that the plan was to get inside quietly, but now it's too late. The base's alarms blare out, certainly alerting anyone or anything which may be inside. It turns out that the Metalix Emperor did notice the group's intrusion into the base. He identifies the targets and sends one of the smaller Metalix to deal with them. Elsewhere in the base, the Chaotix are busy searching around, moving from room to room for any sign of their friend or his captors. By now the alarms have been shut off, but they know that if Metalix is here, they're most likely on their way to stop them. Charmy flies back to the group after he had gone off to search further ahead. He tells the rest of the group that Metalix is definitely here, and that one of them is headed straight towards them. Rather than try to fight, they opt instead to find a hiding place. Vector pulls a ventilation hatch off the wall and orders everyone inside, where they will hopefully be well hidden. The group scramble inside, though it's a tight squeeze. As Metalix searches around the area, the group squirming knocks the hatch off the wall, alerting Metalix to their location. Knack immediately decides to make a run for it. He hops out of the vent and makes his escape, leaving the others to fend for themselves. They think that Metalix will order them to surrender and take them prisoner, but they don't know how ruthless Metalix can be. The robot opens fire on the vent with his primary laser, destroying it and knocking the Chaotix in all directions. They try to fight back and rush the robot all at once, but he's simply too powerful. With a single swing, Metalix sends the crew flying back. They don't even have time to get back up before Metalix fires his laser again. He misses the group, but then again, he wasn't even aiming for them. Everyone looks up to where the laser hit, just in time to see the ceiling caving in on them and burying them alive. As Metalix looks over at the rubble, he thinks he has succeeded in killing them all, but Knuckles stumbles out from the wrecked vent, a little battered, but still able to fight. He leaps straight into an attack and tries to punch Metalix, but the robot is far too fast and easily dodges it. Knuckles himself dodges several of the robot's laser blasts, but eventually one comes too close and knocks him away. Metalix thinks the blast actually hit and begins moving closer to confirm the kill. He inspects the area where Knuckles fell, but then, before he can even react, Knuckles rises up and hurls a steel beam at Metalix's torso, which appears to take the killer robot out once and for all. Knuckles takes a moment to recover, and that's when Knack reappears from a nearby corner, astounded that Knuckles actually managed to destroy Metalix all by himself. The two decide to check on the area where the rest of the Chaotix fell, thinking there could still be a chance they're still alive. They look at the rubble, and sure enough, after a few moments, they see the pile of fallen metal begin to shift. Mighty lifts up a huge chunk of it, and the rest of the Chaotix emerge from a hole in the ground which Mighty must have punched open before the ceiling caved in on them. They ask what happened to Metalix, but Knuckles tells them not to worry, that he took care of everything. But then, nearby, Metalix rises back up, half destroyed and clearly unstable, but he still has enough control to fight. This time, the whole group decides to run away. Even if they can take down this Metalix in its current state, they know that the other one will most likely be close behind. Knack tells the others that while he was running away earlier, he managed to stumble onto the area where they're keeping the Omniviewer, and decides to lead them straight to him. Knack finds the room he was looking for, and everyone runs inside. But when they get there, they receive quite an unpleasant surprise. The room is actually the main chamber where the Metalix Emperor lies in wait, and that's when it hit them. It was all a trap. Knack must have been working with the Metalix all along. 4 more Metalix robots surrounds the group, leading them to question just how many more there are. Knack admits that he betrayed his friends, and that it was all for money. The Metalix Emperor continues, pointing out that it was Knack who gave them the codes to break into the Omniviewer's systems, leading to his capture. Then he deliberately betrayed his friends, leading them straight into a trap. But then the Emperor also says he has no further use for Knack, and as such, he must be killed along with his friends. Knack had suspected something like this may happen, and he prepared himself for such an event. He is a master of miniaturizing technology. He pulls out a tiny gun from his hat, which he claims is some sort of disruptor weapon. It enlarges to its full size, and Knack prepares to fire. But before he can, one of the Metalix blasts him in the back. Knuckles notices how worried the Metalix seem about the weapon, so he tries to get it himself. He leaps forward and grabs it, all the while avoiding a barrage of laser fire. It takes a moment to figure out how to use it, but when he does, he just keeps on pulling the trigger, which sends out some sort of energy to disrupt the electronic signals. It works. As the disruptor fires, it shuts down each of the robots, leaving them lifeless all around them. Everyone is impressed. They never suspected that such a small device could wipe out their enemies so easily. They check on Knack and find that he's still alive. He didn't take a direct hit from the laser blast, and as such was only knocked out. Next, they resume the search for the Omniviewer and find him nearby. They use a similar device to the one that captured him to remove him from the base's computers. With this, they should be able to easily restore him to his original frame. With their mission now complete, the group makes their way out of the base, to restore the Omniviewer, to punish their traitorous friend, and to return Knuckles back to the floating island. A short time later, a bright light appears on the floating island as the Omniviewer appears. Knuckles leaps out from the screen, amazed at how the viewer can easily transport people anywhere. Knuckles checks to make sure nothing is wrong with the viewer, that the Metalix didn't damage him through the whole ordeal. The viewer says he can't remember much of what happened, but from what he can tell, everything is functioning just fine. As the viewer disappears, a scary thought comes to Knuckles' mind. He knows that Metalix is supposed to work for Robotnik, but he can't shake the feeling that this time it seemed as if they had broken away and were working for themselves. The scene then shifts back to the Special Zone, back to the Egg Fortress. The Metalix are still laying in a lifeless heap, but then the screen comes to life. The backup systems begin restoring the Metalix, and soon enough, they're back. It seems that this may have been one of their backup plans too. Now that everyone thinks the Metalics have been destroyed, they can continue their plans without fear of being discovered or stopped. The Emperor Metalix turns to a nearby screen, and up flashes another version of the Omniviewer. While the viewer was captured, they were making a copy of him. Now that they have their own version of the Omniviewer, they are free to travel anywhere they want through both time and space. They have now become more dangerous than anyone can ever know. It turns out that Knuckles was correct. The Metalics are no longer working for Robotnik. They have broken free and formed what they call the Brotherhood of Metalics. There is now a whole army of these evil robots, ready to move out at any time. If Mobius thought that Robotnik was bad, they are totally unprepared for what the Brotherhood of Metalics has planned.